Again, dear ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I want to greet all the participants and organizers of this event. Thank you for the opportunity to express my speech. And I want to congratulate all women with this Women's Day, International Women's Day. And I want to wish you all the best in your life, success in your job, of course, strong health, and to be happiness, big achievements in your job. All the best. Okay, and secondly, I want to say that pardon if I may not correctly pronounce something, because I learned English last year, so my level is not high. Let me introduce myself more detailedly and my speech. Okay, just a moment. I assumed my present position in 2020 as Vice Dean Faculty of Biology and Biotechnology at Al-Farabi Kazakh National University. And before this, I have been working in same faculty as an assistant professor for 7 years. Recently, I have been awarded the best teacher of university by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Republic of Kazakhstan in Republican competition. My research deals with basis as well as applied aspects of environmental biotechnology, with special emphasis on microalgae ecology and its applications in environmental protection, sustainable use of resources, and remediation. Among my main research topics are sustainable biofuel production from microalgae, bioremediation, and the use of mixotrophic microalgae in production of high-value biochemical. I embarked on a research career in 2001 when I undertook a master's in biological sciences. I worked for 20 years in research into physiology and system biology of microalgae, undertaking a PhD along the way. I reckon it takes around 10 years to get to grips with the research area. Published over 60 peer-reviewed research articles on top journals of algae fields, wrote 5 book chapters, registered 7 patents. My scientific accomplishment obtained after receiving the doctoral degree, constituting a significant contribution to the biotechnological applications of photosynthetic microbes. Presently, I'm leading a number of projects funded by the Kazakhstan Ministry of Education and Science and Research Councils, often working with industry to develop sustainable solutions using microalgae, how microalgae can be used to help tackle such as big challenges. These big challenges relate to climate change, human health, bioenergy, food security, aquaculture, wastewater and pollution, bioremediation, industrial biotechnology, and economy. Few of these projects are replenishment, preservation, certification, and creation of a data bank of collection cultures of phototrophic microorganisms, promising for obtaining biofuels, biofertilizers, and biologically active substances. Development of scientific and methodological basis for biomonitoring technology and forecasting the state of polluted water ecosystems using phototrophic microorganisms. development of technology for obtaining new biologics and probiotics and antioxidant properties based on microalgae and cyanobacteria biomass for use in agriculture and food industry. Production of biodiesel based on cyanobacteria produced of fatty acids, and development of technology for obtaining biofertilizers based on nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. I want to say that I enjoy that the work I'm involved in has significance in the real world, and knowing that I'm contributing towards this is very motivating. Many of my female students who had plans of stopping after their first degree are now considering pursuing a degree in science after working with me. Once they see me as someone who has achieved something, so they are encouraged by my success, and I also encourage them that they can achieve success in science by dedication, determination, and hard work. Whether a scientist is male or female, we all have to arrange our lives around family and work commitments, and somehow keep the plate spinning. I find that maintaining a work-life balance even now remains a huge challenge. It's a continual battle. But science is a wonderful career, and I can honestly say that I've never had a boring day. It's a privilege to be paid to explore the frontiers of scientific understanding. Aside from my family and husband who have helped me in life, I remember that two of my mentors, Professor Bolathan and Professor Ajrar Zhubanova, were both incredibly supportive and made my early career extremely enjoyable and logistically possible. I think we can all agree that mentorship is essential for advancement in any field, not just science. Gender was never an issue, since it was really about the science for them. The importance of having good practical day-to-day arrangements cannot be overstated. The practical difficulties of managing small children and having a career are often overwhelming, but are manageable with good planning and an understanding attitude from all concerned. I have always felt this is another joy of working in science, that I have never worked for somebody and nobody's ever worked for me. We have always worked together as colleagues, whether it's a student or when I was a student, a professor. We are really equal partners in the game. In developing countries, the gender disparity in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is a multifactorial issue that includes familial, social, cultural, and institutional factors that cannot be ignored or overlooked. When it comes to solving the issue of underrepresentation of women in science, networking and events are not enough. We also need to tackle the structural problems of a working world that exist within a framework of systems that reinforce inequality and make it hard for women to remain in science. The most dramatic drop of women active in science can be seen in the postdoc phase. Introducing living weeks and paid parental leave for postdocs, for example, would help to make raising children a more gender equitable process. Other factors include subsidized childcare, allowing mothers to breastfeed in scientific institutions, as well as grants and funding that take maternity leave into account. I believe that in terms of the issue of equitable gender representation in science, women should be even bolder in holding their institutions to account, such as by publishing statistics on dropout rates for each individual's phase of scientific education, recruitment, and promotion. Such tangible measures which support women in pursuing their professional goals would result in an improved gender balance at all levels and a higher proportion of women in leading positions, which would in turn inspire girls to opt for a STEM subject. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Dr. Assemgul. I think you've made very good recommendations in ensuring how women can continue to work as scientists, even though they have to look at after their families. So the balance between your professional life and your domestic life, I think, is absolutely necessary so that you are in a position really to pursue your career in the future. So, and I would like to congratulate you on your accomplishments, which is outstanding. And I think you are a perfect example for the students and women elsewhere, how women scientists can contribute in diverse fields. So thank you very much for your remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Assemgul. I am pleased to announce our next speaker, who is from Jordan, our dear colleague for many years, Engineer Abeer Arafat. Ms. Abeer is currently serving as Assistant to the President for Special Projects at Royal Scientific Society of Jordan. Ms. Abeer, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be with this in this webinar and with such very distinguished ladies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to be with you and to share COMSATS community its celebration on the World's International Women's Day. The theme this year is Choose to Challenge. As you all know, the world is passing through a very hard pandemic, and we all need to survive and thrive through this COVID-19 crisis. For that, I would like to start with a message of wisdom, motivation, and tenacity Her Royal Highness Princess Samia bint Al-Hassan, the President of the Royal Scientific Society, shared by trailblazing women from around the globe through the Athena 40 Forum hosted by the Global Thinkers Forum last year in June. Her Royal Highness said, "When we emerge from this current crisis, as we will in time, let us not forget lessons learned. We survive when we help one another. We thrive when we support one another. And we do best when we allow the best of ourselves to shine." To those young women who see adversity in their daily life, I say, please be severe. Please reach out wherever you can to help you achieve your potential. I do consider myself as one of the luckiest women in Jordan who started her career working exactly with my specialty as a mechanical engineer materials. I started my work at the Royal Scientific Society in 1995 at the metallurgy and heat treatment unit. I still remember these days enjoying testing, inspection, classification of metals. And in 1996, I wrote my first research proposal with the theme of minimizing of imports of spare parts to local industries, through the introduction of heat treatment technologies. The success made in this project helped in being funded till its 3 phases were accomplished in 2003. And 3 books were published by the funder after being evaluated by university experts. I published some papers in local conferences and had my first training book in heat treatment for engineers and technicians, besides many chapters in other training books in the field of design. I was also internationally qualified and certified in the non-destructive inspection for level 2 and 3 in different techniques. In 2004, I won my first European Union funded project in the field of conservation of metallic antiques. This project made me appreciate the value of our artifacts and how to find suitable coating materials for long-lasting and for our generations to learn about Jordan heritage. In this project, I had many published papers internationally in refereed journals and in conferences, and was co-author in a book entitled Metals and Museums in the Mediterranean, Protecting, Preserving, and Interpreting. During this project, the Royal Scientific Society appointed me as Head of Research and Development Office for having good knowledge and connections with different funding agencies. I have to admit that I faced really many challenges, but when you taste success, you concentrate only on this success and eliminate any other obstacles faced. My motto in this life is the following verse from the Quran, from Surah At-Tawbah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقل اعملوا فسيرى الله عملكم ورسوله والمؤمنون. And say, do deeds. Allah will see your deeds, and so will His Messenger and the believers. When Her Royal Highness Princess Samia bint Hassan started as a president at the Royal Scientific Society in 2006, she tried to know all her employees and trying till today to make sure that we all have suitable working environment and job title that matches our expertise and know-how. Since 2010, I have been looking over Royal Scientific Society's international relations and make sure that the Royal Scientific Society is in the global map to continue on Her Royal Highness' major vision. We always need to look over the bright side of our life despite of everything happens around us. Jealousy persons and failures will insert obstacles in your road, but the wise way to overcome this is just neglecting them and go for the next step. I have to tell you that if I have stopped once looking just behind me over the pitfalls, I'm sure I won't achieve any of what I have done in over 25 years and won't sit among you proudly as Her Royal Highness Assistant for Special Projects. Jordan this year is celebrating its 100 years, and RSS celebrated last year its Golden Jubilee. And we need to keep our successors' achievements and build on it. We also have to teach our children and our next generation about our achievements, to raise our country's name globally, and to build on these achievements. As Her Royal Highness said during the Global Thinkers Forum on Women in the MENA Power and Creativity in 2013, she said, "We believe that reaching out to women can help build innovative enterprises now and in the future." Hope I was able to give you a brief about my journey at the Royal Scientific Society, and hope through our wise leadership go over this pandemic soon. Thank you, dears.
Thank you very much, Engineer Abeer Arafat. I think your presentation brings in another area of scientific knowledge and research, which is related to conservation, which is related to museums, and how your scientific knowledge is helping in basically preserving and conserving your historical artifacts and objects. The patronage of Her Royal Highness, I think, is extremely important. And I can see how she has basically mentored you and how her influence and example as a very, very accommodating, successful woman is for the other women in Jordan and elsewhere. So I would like to congratulate you on this achievement and on winning a number of projects from the European Union and other countries. And as in charge of international cooperation, I'm sure you have a very important role to play in building networking and other relationships. So thank you for your intervention.
Thank you.
Our next speaker from Brazil, Professor Mariangela Hungria, is an established researcher in the field of agricultural sciences and winner of TWAS-Lenovo Award in Agriculture. Professor Hungria is a professor at State University of Londrina and also working at Embrapa Soja, Brazil. Professor Hungria, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. In some places here in Brazil is good morning. I'm very pleased to be here. As I'm a professor, I like to prepare speeches. So I prepare something to illustrate here that may help to make my point. So are you seeing there? Do you see my, yes? Yeah. Okay, so I hope that in 50 minutes, I will be able to inspire young women because my story is the story of many women that I know. My childhood was in a small city in Brazil, in the state of São Paulo, where we have these street friends, but it was very traditional and Catholic. And values for women were, we had to get married, we have to have children, and we have to go to church every Sunday. But I wanted more. As my family was not rich or had properties, I knew that I had to study hard. And I loved to study. But at a girls' school, knowledge, and I tried very much to have knowledge and good grades, was as important as self-behavior and religion. So to study and to know about things was just 1/3 of what they expected from me. But I was very lucky because I had a grandma that I loved very, very much. And she was unusual at the time. She studied and taught pharmacy. She was a science teacher in public and middle and junior high school. After classes, she was my mentor in experience at the backyard of our home. So she told me about photosynthesis, respiration, and everything. But my favorite were the microorganisms in the soil, the life in the soil. Then it was holiday. I was 8 years old, and she gave me one of her books to read. And I spent the night reading. I was so excited. The name of the book was Microbial Hunters. Then I decided, I want to be a scientist. I want to be a microbiologist. Then I moved to the big city of São Paulo to have better conditions of study. I was not rich. Then I had to study hard to get a fellowship in a good private school. I love to study. I love to have teams. I received several prizes, but I also love to be thankful for the opportunity of having a fellowship in a good school. But then now, what? My class, they all went to medical school. That was glamour. But I loved so much the soil. I want to go to the agronomy school that did not have glamour at that time at all. And furthermore, it was a profession for men. But even though I went to Piracicaba, São Paulo, at the university to study agronomy, weirdness, I was a woman, I wanted to be a scientist, and I was studying agronomy. To get things more complicated, I got pregnant at the university. Lots of prejudice. From a male colleague, I heard, "We feel so sorry about you. Your career will be over." Difficult times, I had to work to support the children, to study, to take care of the children. But even though I finished in the 3rd place among more than 150 students, most of them men. And I did not give up my dreams. But I added one more, because before there, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a science, I want to be a microbiologist. But now I also wanted to be a good mother. So I proceeded with my master and my PhD, both in Brazil, in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, on biological nitrogen fixation. But what is this biological nitrogen fixation process? Nitrogen is life. Nitrogen is part of the DNA, amino acids, proteins, is the nutrient most required by plants. In agriculture, it has to be supplied by 2 sources, chemical fertilizers, but there are lots of limitations in the use of chemical fertilizers. First, the cost is in dollars, and countries as my one, we import more than 70% of all nitrogen fertilizers that we use. Environmental pollution, because requires lots of energy for the synthesis of nitrogen fertilizers, and then is related to the emission of greenhouse gas, is the chemical fertilizers that emits most of the greenhouse gas, and also water pollution by nitrate. And the 3rd one is that the plants do not use all the nitrogen fertilizer that we use, that we add to them. Here in tropics, it's usually maximum of 50%. But then we have this wonderful biological process, that's the biological nitrogen fixation. These microorganisms that I loved since I was a child, 3 billion years ago, they evolved to acquire an enzyme nitrogenase that's able to capture the nitrogen from the air and to give as biological fertilizer for the plant. And then when the plants appear in earth, some of these bacteria, they associated with these plants, most legumes, doing specific structures in the roots where this industry of biological nitrogen fertilizer takes place. And here you see a plant without the bacteria and here with the bacteria. And this biological process is the 2nd one after photosynthesis, important for Earth, and contributes all over the globe with thousands of nitrogen in grain crops, in trees and forage to the planet. Then I got my first job and I had another wonderful woman participating in my life, Dr. Joana Dobereiner. So I was very lucky to have this woman, and I was working with common beans, fazelos vulgaris, that's very important in our diet here in South America. But I needed some international experience. So me, a single woman, a single mother with 2 children, we went to USA, to Cornell University, to California Davis. Later, I went to Spain because I wanted to know the European view of science. But just here, when we were leaving US, I had to take another mother's decision. I had to move there from the place where I was hired to the south part of the country because the school for my child was better, and the other child, she needed a special medical care. So I went to the soybean center in Londrina, Paraná, where I stay till today. I started from zero, and I learned that in South, we have to do our own research. Soybean, today Brazil is the main producer in the world, but it's an exotic plant introduced in Brazil, so we did not have the bacteria able to do the biological nitrogen fixation. So in areas cropped for the first time, we had to introduce this bacteria, and then we did a selection from bacteria from other countries, and this is the difference that you see in field without and with bacteria. But then In developed countries in the north, like US, in Europe, and even in the south of Australia, the knowledge was that once you introduce this bacteria on the soil, you do not have to do anything else, never. They continue with this till today. Here is a journal last year, very nice journal, where in the United States, they say that they increased 10% yield by applying 870 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. That's an enormous amount, costs money, gives emission of greenhouse gas and water pollution. While we, with more than 300 experiments, we realized that reintroducing the bacteria every year, what we call re-inoculation, we get yields, soybean grain yields as high or even higher than in USA without adding nitrogen fertilizer. We followed on with bacteria, then we isolated and selected another type of bacteria that contributes a little less than the rhizobia with nitrogen fixation, but it's an industry of phytohormone synthesis and then promotes lots of growth of plant, mainly roots. Then we selected and released strains for the maize and for the yield able to increase grain yield and so increase food availability for the population. And our main environmental problem in Brazil is that we have 108 million hectares of pastures, most of them with brachiaria. This is more than 2 times all the area that we use to produce grains, and worse. More than 70% are in some stage of degradation. But again, we went to the microorganisms, we selected strains able to promote plant growth, and then we release these bacteria that are able to increase not only biomass production, but also nutritional value for the cattle. And then we hope that will contribute to decrease this degradation of pasture. And then finally, microorganisms are so great that we decided to join them. Some of them can help each other. And that was the case with the nitrogen fixer for the soybean and the phytohormone producer, the Azospirillum brasilense. And we were able to double the grain, soybean grain production. And when we do good science, we publish papers on that, but then we also explain and show to the farmers how profitable was to use this bacteria, and we succeeded. Today, 80% of the farmers in Brazil, they use the nitrogen fixers. And this was a technology released just 5 years ago, and we have already 25% of the farmers in Brazil adopting this technology that we release. This is something like 12 million hectares. And nowadays, Brazil has the leadership in the use of the biological nitrogen fixation technology. We save with that more than $14 billion per year that we are not buying nitrogen fertilizer for the crop. And we are helping the planet mitigating the emission of greenhouse gases related to the nitrogen fertilizer. So now, do you remember what my friend there said back in the university, that my career would be over because I was a woman in agronomy and then I got pregnant? Well, today I have more than 700 publications from pure science, like description of new species, to books, to publications to explain to the farmers about the importance of the microorganisms. I also released the strains for the Brazilian agriculture, and many of these strains are already in US, in Australia. I released technologies on how to apply these microorganisms. We released products in association with the private sectors that we call inoculants or biofertilizers. And I have been so rewarded. I am a member of the Brazilian Academy of Science. I received a prize from the Ministry of Agriculture, from the President of Brazil. This was a very special for me because it is a women's magazine in Brazil that voted by internet. So I received the prize as a scientist for this women's magazine. I was considered the agronomist of the year in my state and also in Brazil. Last year, I was in the publication, in the list published by a study by Stanford in the 100,000 top scientists in the world. And you know that for us to be a scientist in a third world, in a developing or undeveloping country is 10 times more, maybe 100 times more difficult than in US, Canada, or Europe. And this was I was very happy with that. Last year, I was co-winner of the Third World Academy of Science Lenovo Award. It was the first time in agriculture, the second time that the prize was given to a woman. I also have been rewarded with the success of many of my students, and I give particular attention to the women, and they are also very successful. I believe that because they see me as an example. I have world collaboration in Africa, Latin America, Australia, Europe, and now I'm the national coordinator of an institute of plant growth promoting microorganisms with 26 public institutions, private industries, and with almost 200 people. So what I have to say for young women, well, for every woman that's listening now, is never give up when somebody says that you'll not succeed because you are a woman, you are poor, you come from a non-first world country, you are a mother. Be proud of being a woman, be proud of being a wife, a mother, be proud of being a professor, be proud of being a scientist, be proud of being everything that you want to be. And never, never forget about your dreams and about the most important things in your life. In my case, it's on my head, it's on my skin, and I'm my daughter, Carol and Marcela, and it's biological nitrogen fixation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mariangela. I think your intervention is very inspiring. I think there are 2 or 3 very striking things that you have said. The first one is, you learned that in the South, we have to do our own research. I think this is something very important because obviously if we have to develop our own local solutions, then it is important for us to look answers within our system. This is not to say that one is not going to benefit from the research and innovation that has been carried out in other countries in the developed world. But nevertheless, I think there can be a fusion where we have to look at the local environment, local circumstances, and adjust whatever we are requiring from the north to the local environment. The second thing you said about dreams, I think dreams are absolutely important. Unless and until we dream, I don't think we will be able to realize much in life. So you can keep on adding to the dreams, but there has to be something that you should look forward to, something that you want to aspire to. You are an accomplished woman. You've been recognized all over the world, internationally and elsewhere. I think hats off to you. Very, very commendable. Like the other women also on the panelists. I think it's absolute admiration, admirable achievements that you all have had. And agriculture is extremely important, and obviously it gets related to food security, it gets related to environment, climate change, so on and so forth. So the fertilizer that you have talked about, which is a natural fertilizer, I guess, it's not relying on chemicals. This is a very, very important contribution that you have made. It has to be celebrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are pleased to have been joined by Professor Samia Sharpie. Professor Sharpie is the Director General of Scientific Research at the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research of Tunisia, which is a COMSATS focal point in Tunisia. Professor Sharpie, are you with us? The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. It is my great pleasure to participate to this important event on women in science. I am professor of physics at the Faculty of Science of Tunis, and I was head of laboratory of condensed matter physics. I spent 25 years at the Faculty of Science at the University of Tunis Al-Manar. And since 2016, I was proposed to be General Director of Valorization of Research at the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. And after 2 years, I was proposed to be General Director of Scientific Research. So I am now still in this position, and I am also the head of the financial pole of scientific research at the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. It is very important for me to have this position, and I am also glad to have in Tunisia we have a specific performance because according to the UNESCO data, the last studies of UNESCO, Tunisia is the first country in Africa and Middle East concerning the number of women researchers. We have 55% of researchers which are women. So we are really proud of this performance, but we should see in more deep the deep situation, because we can see that PhD, for example, for PhD students, we have more than 70% of PhD student postdocs which are women. In the PhD students, we have 66% of women. So we have more women in particularly in PhD studies. And but when we see the career evolution, for the career evolution, we have in the beginning of the career as assistant professors, we have 62% women in a permanent position at the Ministry of Higher Education for teaching and doing research. But when we go to the evolution of the career, we have only 30% of women which are associate professors, and only 20% of women which are full professors. So we see that even we have a very good data results in the global whole percentage of scientists, we can see that we have a lot to do to enhance the opportunities for women to be in the top of in the full position. So we look for encouraging, pushing, supporting more women to have an evolution of their career more easily. And also we are looking for having more women in the high level positions, for example, president of university, deans, president of higher education and scientific institutions. So in my position as General Director of Scientific Research, I am really very sensitive to this gender gap, and we are looking to organize events, sessions of also to push women and to encourage women to be more present in all positions in which we just have to propose yourself and to go for election and to be candidate So sometimes the women are very, very good professors, very good researchers. They are working a lot, and they are excellent, but sometimes they don't want to be responsible, to be the head of something because of the specific activities of women. And I know that the women are, how to say, super women, because we are doing so many things for the work and outside also the work. So I will not be very long in my presentation to your session. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about Tunisia, and I am really proud to see all these very important women in the world, and I hope to have the opportunity to see you in real life, and to have the possibility to exchange with you your success stories. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Samia Sharpie. From Tunis. I think you have done extremely well in Tunis insofar as women researchers are concerned. The number you mentioned, or the percentage that you mentioned, was something like 55% of women researchers in the field of science, and 70% postdoc are women. So I think it is remarkable. The only difficult area that you pointed out was that as you go up the ladder, the number becomes less and less, and it's 20% at the level of professors. Well, with a person like yourself, committed and obviously very sensitive to gender equality, I'm sure that this also is going to get rectified with the passage of time, and you will have more. These young researchers are going to get promoted, and apparently at the top level also, the representation of women scientists is going to be even more. So congratulations, and I think to all the women in Tunisia for this wonderful achievement, and hopefully one day you will be, all of you will be able to visit Pakistan and see for yourself what achievements women have made in Pakistan. I think we need to basically exchange this information, not because obviously we would like to secure our turf, but I think what is important is to be able to talk about it and let everyone know what kind of contributions are being made by women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Samia. We are reaching the conclusion of our event, but in all this Women's Day celebration, we must not forget the other 50% of our globe, and that is men. So we have included a guest who is here with us, Dr. Sohail Chughtai, who will be sharing his perspective. From his perspective, what are his views, how women are contributing in his organization. Dr. Sohail Chughtai is consultant orthopedic surgeon, UK, based at Harley Street, London. Also, he is a Microsoft certified specialist and masters in telemedicine. He is telehealth instructor and designer of over 20 international telehealth projects. Currently, he is also the chairman of Medical City Online UK and faculty lead of UHS telehealth department. So over to you, Dr. Sohail.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azima. It's been a pleasure to speak to the topic, the women in participating today. I've just heard a couple of talks. I found that the perception has been changing for the good. I've been trained in UK, and I had very, very few female surgeons during my training time. But then I saw a surge of female surgeons growing into the field, the spinal surgeons, the neurosurgeons. And I felt good that the intellect, the brain has no barrier to excel, and women realize that. The professional women, especially when they realize their potential, then the sky is the limit. The only problem I see is the perception that women are less suitable for certain jobs. That perception should go away. I'll give you one example. In Pakistan, which is taken to be a male-dominated society, in some sectors it is in the far remote areas of Pakistan. But when you come to the people who are educated, they respect women as much as they look at their male colleagues. There are 19 female pilots in Pakistan Air Force, 19 female pilots. Now, there was a perception that flying a plane, and let alone a plane or a fighter plane, is a job of high skill and a man should do it. But no, women can do it. There were 2 female pilots 3 years ago, now 19 female pilots. So there's a trigger, there's a snowball effect. So women need to be in those industries where they can trigger off a snowball effect of other people coming in. Take example of Pakistan's cricket team, Samia. She has been labeled as one of the top cricketers in the world, female cricketers in the world. Then you know Malala. I mean, that story doesn't have to be really told time and again. It's a story which everyone knows. Arafat, I had personally being in IT, I had a chance to talk to her and meet her at one stage. She was an incredible young lady who we lost, but she represented the high skills of intellect. Then we got Sitara Baruch, a young girl who made all the records of all A levels and O levels. She comes from a very small village in Chiniot. And I, in fact, brought her to London, a couple of events, and also in Islamabad in the embassy, promoting her. 2 years ago, I spoke at the Women Economic Forum in London. And I mentioned about Pakistan in particular, that in Pakistan, one of the countries where women have gone to the top political seat, Benazir Bhutto, and then the Speaker of the Assembly. So I think there is a ground laid for women in Pakistan. We cannot say that there's no precedent. There are precedents, there are role models. And I think the perception has to dissolve. And men have to play a good role. And I think, Dr. Zima, you said 50%. By the way, I correct, it's 49%. So you have an edge. So we are in minority in Pakistan. So I support that minority. And I think the time has come when I have daughters and I tell them, look, I treat you as like my sons. And I don't think there is anything less than you. And, you know, I may sound harsh, but I tell you one thing. I think men should stop saying women first. Men should treat women as their colleagues, as their partners, not as somebody whom they can support, as somebody whom they work together with, as colleagues. And I strongly believe that my message is what Socrates said long time back, that no woman should ever grow old before knowing her true potential. That's what Socrates said, and I strongly believe that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sohail. That was very inspiring and very interesting as well. And I hope all men and women as well, they learn to work together equally without any inequalities or any perceptions of inequalities in their minds. So with this, we come to the conclusion of our program or our event, and but we would like to continue our questions and answers session. So the questions to the speakers, any questions, please? One question to all of our worthy speakers. Has the role of women during COVID-19 been adequate enough where we can claim that women have been involved without facing any inequalities, and or they have been leading the forefront? It is open to all speakers. Anyone who wants to answer.
Well, if I can start, we still face lots of problems, okay? one thing that we may say about equality and everything, but now with this pandemic that we had, it's clear, and it's today in the newspaper, women lost their jobs far more than men. And women stopped their careers far more than men because they had to stay at home with the children and may just continue to work, and somebody had to take care of the children. The women that were able to, because many women that had to go to the work because they did not have a career, like if they are cookers or they are cleaners, they just left their children completely alone at home. And so we talk about equality, but when something appears, a problem appears as the one that we had now, we see that we still have a long way to go, because in this pandemic, it's clear that women suffer and are stopping their career far more than men.
Thank you. Well, I think the UN Secretary General, I read his article in one of the local newspapers here in Pakistan. I think he's also said that gender inequality actually has increased as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think particularly in the developing world, but insofar as some of the other countries are concerned, I was watching a program on BBC about Barcelona, in which there were these women who were working somewhere, and they said that our men are taking care of the children at home because we have to go to work, because obviously we were working in hospitals and elsewhere. So it depends really. I do understand that there is inequality, and particularly women because of the constraint of living at home, they have lost their jobs and they have to basically stay at home. But hopefully this question will also be addressed somehow.
There is a question for you. What's the status of gender equality in employment in Kazakhstan? Ms. Assemgul. Ms. Assemgul, can you hear us?
Yes.
Should I repeat the question?
Can you repeat, please?
What's the status of gender equality in employment in Kazakhstan?
Thank you for question. Kazakhstan has begun creating legislative and organizational conditions for equality in workplace. A state is creating gender-sensitive society. State is expanding economic opportunities for rural women, giving them access to public and state resources. Women make up more than 70% of employees in health, educational, and social service. But despite of this fact, today women are 22–26% in state parliaments, which does not yet mean the principle of gender politic. Women have never been appointed head of regions and cities of Republican significance.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question for is she with us? Abeer, yes. I have a question for Abeer. Abeer, how different and similar are women issues in the developing and developed world, do you think? You must have interacted with the developed world as well. And especially with respect to the integration in workforce in science and technology.
Thank you. Actually, I believe willingness of women to do something can help. Plus, if your leadership believe in what you do in science and technology, they should support you. That's exactly what I can see with most successful women in our, especially in our country. If you have a leadership that believes in you and in your achievement, everybody supports you. But as I said, nothing is smooth, nothing is easy. You have to do it. But if you live in your capacities, you won't lose it. Just always look at the bright side of the thing.
Thank you. Any other questions? So
Yes,
Okay, now we should proceed towards the end, and I would request Dr. Zima Farid, Principal Medical Officer at COMSATS and Coordinator COMSATS Study Health Program, for her vote of thanks.
So on this occasion, on behalf of COMSATS and the team organizing this event, I would like to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers for gracing us this event with their presence and sharing their views. I would also like to thank participants for joining us online to attend this event, and I hope they would be taking a message of women empowerment in every walk of life through hard work, dedication, and perseverance, as our speakers have shared. The importance of this spirit of women empowerment has been highlighted since the outbreak of pandemic last year. Throughout the pandemic, women through their leadership, abilities, skills, and dedication have proved that inclusiveness is the key to achieve any agenda in the progress towards 2030 agenda. I would also like to thank Ambassador Fawzia Nasreen for providing an overview on how women in the South's participation in the education, political decision-making, commercial and financial activities can uplift the progress towards SDG, and it requires equal participation of men and women in S&T for promotion of STEM. I must also mention my deep appreciation for Professor Mariangela for sharing her journey from a small, being a small girl with passion for a field and then pursuing the career in that field, and how her grandmother had been a source of inspiration for her. I also like to thank Engineer Abeer Arafat, who is not only a dedicated member of RSS team, but also a well-known figure within COMSATS fraternity. She emphasized on perseverance and neglecting the obstacles as the women, they go on the ladder of their careers or in their lives. I would also like to express my gratitude to Professor Assemgul who joined us in a very short time, and she highlighted that maintaining a balance between personal and professional life is difficult, but it's a challenging and interesting field of science that kept her going. In the end, I would also like to thank Professor Samia Sharpie and Dr. Suhail Chuktai, who enlightened us with their words, kind words. I would also like to thank the team here who made it possible, the mastermind behind this idea, Ms. Homa Baloch and Ms. Mahnoor, Ms. Sheher Bano, and of course Ms. Isra for supporting us in doing the moderator's job. In the end, I think we should reiterate that overcoming the challenges of women empowerment girls' STEM education, equitable work opportunities, and better work environment all should be all could truly enable us women to offer their best to the societies and the national growth. So I thank you all for joining us in this session, and I hope have a happy Women's Day, and I hope this year it brings more success to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.